Buddy, Uneducated Economist here. All right, like always, be sure to hit that like button when you come into the live stream. By hitting that thumbs up button, the YouTube algorithm will pick up the video, spread it around for more people to join in for this probably going to be about 30-minute video. I'm on lunch. I have about another 35 minutes of my lunch break here to talk about how it is that Saudi Arabia, for one, is not joining the BRICS nations. Not as of yet. They've been invited, but they aren't joining. How far is he backing that truck up? All right. But they haven't joined yet. And on top of all that, they're issuing out dollar-denominated debt. Now, this is very much against the whole idea that the world is abandoning the dollar. That is not happening. I never once ever believed it. I don't believe it today. I don't believe that's going to be taking place into the future. I believe that the dollar is strong. It's going to remain strong. In fact, it's probably going to go stronger going into the future. And yes, there is a point in time in the future that the dollar will die, but that's not happening tomorrow. All right. And so all these people who are going and making strategies that are in line with the idea that the dollar is going to lose that world reserve currency status and that they are positioning themselves for that moment, they are missing it. They are missing on what is really taking place out there. Just think about it. Saudi Arabia is the indicator of where it is that the economy is going to go. Right, when it comes to the dollar. Like, if the dollar was going to fail, Saudi Arabia would have been getting out of it, right? But they're not. They're issuing out, like, a lot of debt. $12 billion, I think, is what the article was referring to on this sale. And yeah, they haven't done it recently, but until now, they haven't really had the need to deal with the dollars, but the dollars are going to grow stronger, and that is the cheapest place that they can go to try and get an interest rate on their loans, on their bonds. They could sell them in any other currency. They could sell them in yuan. They could sell them in rupees. They could sell them in whatever they wanted. But nobody is going to trust it as much as they're going to trust the deal done in dollars. Right? That's what it comes down to. The dollar is going, and here's the other thing. You think about this for just a second. Right? A lot of people might take in this idea that they're issuing out dollar-denominated debt, and if they default on it, it somehow hurts the United States. Not even. That's not even the case, right? The United States doesn't have anything to do with this deal. Well, that's not true. I guess the banking system does facilitate the trade, but ultimately, this is their debt. When that debt comes due, it's their responsibility to pay it. And now, if they have a situation in which that they are needing dollars in order to pay their debts, what is it that you think that they're going to be selling their commodity in? Right, are they going to sell it in yuans and rupees and anything else out there other than dollars so that they can then exchange those particular currencies for dollars in order to pay their debts? I mean, is that an efficient way of going about it? I mean, is that going to be profitable to them? No. Right? I mean, you just have to think of it logically. The most profitable way of doing it is to sell oil in dollars and to pay that debt in dollars. Right? The moment that you try to sell one currency for another, you're going to be losing. Right? I mean, unless you're a savvy trader and, figure out the timing right on it. But for the most part, that's not the way it's going to go down. And so we can see right here how the dollar is going to dominate throughout the world. It's not just Saudi Arabia not joining the BRICS nations and continuing to be with the dollar. Some of the BRICS nations, in fact, I believe most of them also issue out dollar-denominated debt. China, Brazil, right? All those guys have dollar-denominated debt out there. What are they going to do in order to acquire the dollars they need in order to pay those debts? I mean, are they going to be trading their currencies over for dollars, or are they going to try and sell their commodities for dollars? See, this is how the dollar is going to remain strong going into the future. Everybody thinks that the dollar's done. It's cooked. Nobody wants it. That's not true. It's simply just not even true. I understand that there's a lot of people who look at the Federal Reserve, have this belief of the dollar destruction, see the inflationary scenarios that are coming from it, believe that there's going to be hyperinflation and dollar destruction, and this is how the Fed and the government and everybody else is operating, and how this is going to end up destroying their lives. But the reality of the situation is the dollar is very strong. And it's going to continue to grow stronger as these other nations start gearing up for lowering or easing on their policies in order to deal with recessionary pressures, while the United States and the Federal Reserve remain elevated. And as that happens, you're going to find the dollar strengthening against the world currencies out there, and it's going to absolutely devastate these other nations. King Dollar the Destroyer is still coming. Like, I don't know how many people understand how impactful a strong dollar is going to be on these foreign nations out there who have issued out an insane amount of debt that's due in dollars. When those debts come due, how do they get the dollars? How do they get them? All right? They have to start selling their assets off very cheap, sell the commodities cheap, selling whatever it is that they can do in order to acquire them dollars to pay the bonds back. And understanding that this is the situation that's happening today. It's not like a hypothetical could possibly come or something that I had experienced in the past. This is going on right now. They push this media propaganda of the BRICS nations. How many people would even know that the BRICS nations would even existed if it wasn't for the mainstream media pushing out that information? I mean, how many people actually pay attention to those alliances? Like, that they actually, how many deals they're doing with each other and stuff like that. Like, I try to focus in on the monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve, try to look here in the United States on what's going on, try to focus in and understand it so that I can not only make these videos, but that then I can internalize the information to make the best decisions for myself, and then try to understand how it is that each one of these nations are conducting themselves on a level that I understand the Federal Reserve. You know how much you would have to take in order to truly understand that stuff? It would be insane. It would be an insane amount of work. I looked at that and I said, what is going on here with these BRICS nations? They can't possibly take over. They can't possibly take over as a world reserve currency, not the system, not anything. Like, none of that. It's all completely imaginary. Like, I'm not trying to say that it isn't taking place. Like, the effort isn't there. I'm not trying to say that it isn't there or that it's like completely like hoax or something. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the ability for them to actually do what it is that the dollar is doing is like a far off concept. It is so far away. I mean, they can serve their purpose, which is actually helping the Federal Reserve to alleviate some of the demand for liquidity that the Federal Reserve is being asked to provide to the world, right? So if you have another form of doing transactions, the Federal Reserve isn't necessarily being put into the pressure of, hey man, you need to provide the world with the liquidity to do these transactions. And how are you going to do that without sending the government into unsustainable debt, right? So the Federal Reserve was in a lot of pressure. It was just like, man, how do we provide the world with all this liquidity and not crash the United States government or not crash the entire economy of the entire world by not providing them with the liquidity? So now what do? Crash the United States or crash the globe? How do we figure out how to get some liquidity to the world so that they can do transactions, not demand it from the United States dollar? Wow. BRICS nations. Dun, da, da. Right? It was like, here, you guys do some of that stuff. You guys do some transactions. There's too much demand for our liquidity. You go do some work. Uh-huh. And so the Federal Reserve sitting over here figuring out, it's just like, man, how can we get into this liquidity, like provide liquidity to the world without driving the United States into unsustainable debt? Got it. We'll buy foreign debt, right? You watch and see. They're going to do that. I know they are because Ben Bernanke talked about it 20 years ago. And there's been no talk about that ever since. Like, I cannot find anywhere in the Fed documents on how it is that they are going to expand the menu of assets on their balance sheet beyond that of what it is that they are doing today with mortgage-backed securities and U.S. treasuries and, the SDRs or gold or whatever. They know, I know from the things that I have read, that there's going to come a moment in which that the demand for liquidity coming from the Federal Reserve to provide to the world, the amount of dollars that they need to provide to the world to do the transaction is going to explode, right? It's going to go way up, and it's due to the debts that are going to come due, right? Like Saudi Arabia is issuing right now. These are the debts that are coming out, that people are borrowing money, and eventually these things are going to come due. They're going to ask for dollars. There's not going to be enough dollars out there. They're going to look to the Federal Reserve and say, hey man, if you don't provide us with dollars, the dollar is going to strengthen. It's going to start destroying the entire world. King Dollar the Destroyer. So the Fed, I know, is at that point is going to step up and be like, okay, well, we're going to have to buy the debt of foreign nations, put that on the balance sheet, and issue out Federal Reserve notes. And that will give us all the assets, the biggest menu in the world of assets to buy, because it'll be the debt of the world, and they can put it on their balance sheet and issue out Federal Reserve notes, and the United States doesn't have to go on an unsustainable debt path. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like when that happens, but they've spoken about it, you know. All right, let's cruise up here. 10 minutes into the video. All right, hey, BRICS is just like you're choosing to use Visa card or a MasterCard. No, I don't think so. It's more like trying to use no, this is what it's like. Using BRICS is not like using a Visa card or MasterCard. This is how the best way to describe BRICS. Let's say you have $100 worth of currency in your wallet. Okay, you have $100 worth of currency in your wallet. And of that $100 worth of currency in your wallet, $80 of it is done in US dollars, Federal Reserve notes. $10 of it is in euros, right? Another $5 of it is in yen, right? And then you have another $5 of random little tiny insignificant dollars mixed inside of there as well, right? And you go to the gas pump, and that guy there says, hey, we'll accept whatever you want, right? You can pay me in whatever currency you want, right? And you go, great, man. I need a full tank of gas. I am out of gas. I got this big old giant truck here. It takes a lot of gas. It's probably going to cost $100 to fill it up, right? And the guy says, great. Do you want to pay me in yen or yuan or whatever it is, $100 worth of whatever currency you want? And you're like, well, I would love to pay you in yuan, but I only have $10 worth or $5 worth of it. I don't have $100 worth of that currency. I have $80 worth of regular dollars, right, that I could pay you, but the rest of it is all in these miscellaneous currencies, and I just don't have enough of that currency in my wallet to pay you $100 worth. So I'm going to have to pay you in dollars for the majority of it, but I can pay some of it in this other currency. Okay, if you can imagine that situation taking place, that is the exact same experience that the world is going through. When the world opens up their wallet, there is tons of dollars in there to do transactions, but there's only a little bit of these other currencies to do transactions. And even if you wanted to do $100 worth of transaction, there's not enough currency in your wallet to do it. The world doesn't have enough currency in the wallet to do it, right? See, these other BRICS nations don't do what the dollar is doing. Like everybody says, like some people just believe that just because it's a fiat currency, all the currency ever imaginable just automatically exists for you to use. It seems that way for us in the United States with the dollar because the amount that they have printed kind of seems that way. But the other nations don't have that much out there, right? And so in order to provide the world with enough currency to do the amount of transactions they want to do, they have to be able to provide the world with the currency to do it with. And there's just not enough of it to do it with. So let's go ahead and provide the world with enough currency to do it that's not the dollars. Let's pick a country, right? China. China's going to issue out the currency, right? They're going to be the main issuer of the world reserve currency. How do they do that? How do they print up enough of their yuan in order to provide the world with that currency? Well, the first thing they're going to have to do is start issuing out a lot of debt. So now they have to get the world to be convinced to buy Chinese debt in order for them to provide the world with the yuan. So now, does the world trust China to pay back their debts? I mean, is that something that the whole world is going to trust at the level that they trust the United States? Hell no, right? People barely trust China as it is, let alone to pay back their debts over time. So they're not going to be able to convince the world to buy their debts. And if they can't convince the world to buy their debts, how are they going to provide the world with the yuan to do the transactions with? They can't, right? This is how the United States is filling the role. They have the safe and liquid assets of the U.S. Treasuries. Everybody knows that that U.S. Treasury will get paid. Now, not everybody is convinced of that, but the world is eventually convinced of that, right? That's what it comes down to. They have a zero chance of default. Now, the dollars that pay those debts back may not have the purchasing power, and that's what I think a lot of people are concerned about, but they are certainly not concerned about the bond not getting paid, not from the Treasury. They would be concerned about a bond not getting paid from China, but not from the Treasury. The Treasury will pay that bond, zero doubt, right? And so with that safe and liquid asset of the U.S. Treasury, now you have something to back this world reserve currency up with. So you can provide the world with the safe and liquid asset, the U.S. Treasuries. And if you have a government that is willing to go that deep into debt and has convinced the world to provide, or to convince the world that they will be paying back that debt, they have the ability to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset, unlike anybody else out there. Nobody can do this. Only the United States has this right now. And I granted, yeah, other nations might step up and, get a little bit, but nobody's trusting them to the level that they trust the United States, and not a single person is, not a single nation is even remotely coming close to the level that the United States is doing it at. Right? And then, how is it that you get the dollars out there to the world? How is China going to get that yuan out there to the world if they were to do what the dollar is doing? Well, how does the dollar doing it? Triffin's dilemma. Right? Understanding Triffin's dilemma then tells you you have to import a whole lot of stuff and export your dollars out there to the world. So you have to run trade deficits. Does China want to run a trade deficit being a manufacturing powerhouse? Hell no. Not even close. That's the exact opposite of what they want. In fact, that is the exact opposite of what all the BRICS nations want. They all want to be the producing nation. Not a single one of them wants to be the debt issuer. They all want to be manufacturers, because manufacturing, saving and producing is what raises your standard of living. Not going deeper into debt, that maintains your luxuries like the United States is doing. All right? This is the way that it's going down. This is better to understand it in the fashion that is truly what is going on, because people say that this dollar is going to lose its world reserve currency status to what? Nothing? The only way it could lose its world reserve currency status is for the world to stop doing transactions altogether. Mass world depression. Now, I'm not saying it ain't going to happen, but it's not happening yet, right? Could it happen? Sure. I see transactions taking place. I see Saudi Arabia taking out dollar-denominated debt. I see Brazil taking out dollar-denominated debt. I see the Federal Reserve struggling to provide the world with liquidity by not, with the issues of the government going deeper or on an unsustainable debt path. They're looking for other places out there that could do the liquidity or do the transactions that the liquidity of the Federal Reserve can't provide. Right? I know I'm probably the only one who speaks like this, but it's better. It's like, I don't know if everything just seems to be backwards or contradictory to everything that seems to be known or understood to the narrative out there. Like, I finally read an article today talking about how the Federal Reserve is political, right? I think it was like, I don't know, some bogus article, CNN or something like that. And so I'm like, okay, good Lord, let's read this thing. Okay, so the Federal Reserve is political. Let's find it. So I'm reading through this article, reading, looking for the part that says it's political, right? Reading. Finally, I get to a little spot in there where it says something about Donald Trump was accusing the Federal Reserve of supporting Biden if they were to drop interest rates. Like, this is what Trump was saying. Like, if the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, it's because they're trying to help Biden out, right? Period. This is like exactly how he was stating it. Right? And I remember other people kind of mentioning it too. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That doesn't make no sense. That is one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard. And here's the reason why. All right? The reason why is because there's a lag that comes from the Federal Reserve adjustment of rates. All right? So if they were to adjust rates today, it would be 6 months to a year before it would impact the economy. When he was saying that, it would actually be in a situation in which that they were to cut today, it would be helping the next administration out, or the current one if they were to be reelected. All right? But it's going to be after the election that those interest rate adjustments would actually impact the economy. Okay, so let's set that aside for just a second, and let's think about the statement one more time that Trump did. If they lower interest rates, it's because they are trying to help Biden out. Okay, if they don't lower interest rates, would that mean they're trying to hurt Biden? That means if they don't lower interest rates, are they trying to support Donald Trump? The same person who was saying that I want to fire Jerome Powell, I don't like them, they suck, they don't know what they're doing. But if they don't lower interest rates, they would be supporting you now, wouldn't they, Donald Trump? I mean, since if they cut rates, they would be supporting Biden, but if they don't cut rates, they would be supporting Trump. That's the, right? I mean, you might as well say it for what it is. I mean, if this is going to be one event, then the exact opposite would be the opposite, right? I mean, that's the only way I could really see it by that statement. I don't believe it. I don't believe either one of them. I think it's a bunch of garbage, just a bunch of white noise blowing out there so that people could be all occupied with what's happening, but not really understanding what's going on in the background. This is like, it's sad to see it happen, but then it's also understandable when you start realizing that the mainstream media is the main policy tool of the Federal Reserve. And so all the propaganda, all the stories that we hear, all this crap about the 2% target. I mean, I was reading another article today that was saying, how the Federal Reserve is trying to get to that 2% target. And I'm thinking, reading through, come on, talk about average inflation rate over time. Average inflation rate over time? Nope, not a single word of it. Nothing about moderately above 2% for some time, how that's the appropriate monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve. No mention of that whatsoever. None, right? All about the idea that they are failing to achieve their 2% target. Dang, still trying. It's ridiculous. Guys, I'm sorry. I just went off on this video today. Good afternoon, everyone. I always enjoy listening to the best podcast on YouTube. Thank you, Rick, man. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody who has been joining the channel. The membership to the channel is just exploding. And I think I understand what's happening here. A handful of people have been gifting memberships to other viewers of the channel. Like, I think they're just randomly just picking out people and gifting them a membership. I mean, you think about it, it's $1 a month, right? I made this membership incredibly cheap. I wasn't trying to create like a membership you have to pay $50, $100, or $200 a month to be part of, or for some secret private information or something. I was creating a community of serious individuals who really want to understand and internalize this information. I started putting membership-only videos together, like the membership videos, as like, from breaking down the speeches, it almost turned into like lessons. And I'm realizing like this membership is really the course. Like, this is how I developed the course, because it's so continuous. Like you were to put out information, you can get some good information from the theories, like, studying the 4 economic theories like Gresham's Law and Triffin's Dilemma and the bullwhip effect and stuff. But then there's continuous stuff that you have to have like daily information on, or, weekly information. And that's where I feel that the membership videos, where I'm breaking down the Fed speeches, the most current ones, is probably the most like informative way of understanding what's coming from the monetary policy in the Federal Reserve. Like, I cannot find any other information that is as clear and as accurate and different from the mainstream media. See, this is what I found out by reading through these speeches, is that there's 2 communications happening. There's the central bankers' communication to each other, and then there's the propagandized information that they are trying to lead the markets with, right? There's literally 2 communications happening. And if you can recognize it, then you see it clearly. You can really see it, but you have to understand that there is this other communication happening with the central bankers. And it's done through these speeches, through these papers that they write. And by going through those and reading them and understanding them, when you see that, you look at the mainstream media and you recognize, whoa, they got this wrong. Why are they talking like this? Why are they saying it? This isn't the accuracy of what the monetary policy is saying from the Federal Reserve themselves. And then you realize, oh, I get it. This is the market manipulation through the credible threats. I get it now. And once you see it, you recognize it. It's like almost as clear as day. It's like, it's just like opening up it's like clears the obscured view. And it's just like all of a sudden you're like, wow, yeah, I do see it. Oh, the average inflation rate over time makes so much more sense about how it is that the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves. Once you understand the neutral interest rate, once you understand that the lower bound had absolutely destroyed them in their ability to stimulate the economy. Once you get all this stuff, it is just absolutely clear. It just makes so much more sense. Right? And the only way to really do that is to go through these speeches and literally break all the information down. Now, you can go and spend 15 years studying these speeches and going through the papers and doing all the other stuff like I did, or you can just join the channel, go back and watch some of the member-only videos that we have done, and join in on some of the discussions that we have going into the future. And I assure you, you are going to pick up this information and be able to internalize it the same as I have. Like, I mean, I don't know if you can be able to make a video and speak it out like I do, but you're going to certainly understand it in a fashion that's going to allow you to make the best decisions for yourself while watching the mainstream media propaganda just completely fool the masses out there. And so I want to thank you guys, those who have been like ultimately sponsoring the channel by gifting memberships to other members. Like this pay it forward kind of aspect to it. You think about it, like if every member of the channel who was gifted a membership was to gift another member out there, or even 2 memberships out there, like the building of this community could grow exponentially. Okay? Now, yeah, granted that I'm attempting to try and make money off of this. Yes, that's my goal. I'm doing it at $1 a time. Like if I was really honestly trying to like make a bunch of money out of it, I would have charged $10 or $100. But that's not what I'm doing. I want to make money, but I want to build this community, and I want to build a good one in which that these courses or these membership only videos, not really courses, but they're kind of like a course, where these things is providing the information, providing the ability for individuals to then learn, understand macroeconomics, understand monetary policy for themselves in a way that just intuitively start making the right decisions, All right, enough with the self-promotion. Let's see. Where's that super chat? Let's go check that out. Hey, where are they? All right, super chat. There we go. John DeLong, $5. Thank you so much. They are going to need a crisis to cover up the masses dying from the vax. New pandemic on economic crisis. Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about, I've heard quite a bit as far as like, the vaccination is doing some damage to people and stuff like that. I mean, whether or not that actually creates an economic event out there going into the future, I mean, I have yet to see evidence of that, but it very well could. I mean, I don't know. All right, hit the like button, guys. Yes, please do. My spell check sucks. All right, there is no intrinsic value anymore. How can people not see that? America is 3 musketeers, all for one and none for you. Jeez. All right, guys, I got like 5 more minutes here. All right, what silly is seeing what currency has become? It was once a physical precious metal, then a paper note, now intangible digits. Yeah, and that's really like, again, a lot of times people will think about that as being like a political move that was forcing the people into paper. But really, if you go back and you study the history of it, you're going to see that it was the United States, being a manufacturing powerhouse, producing the world's greatest stuff, sending that out to the world, all that wonderful manufactured stuff that we were doing, and then we were importing the gold. The more we were doing this, we were denying, the world was being deprived of gold, right? You know, I mean, if one person is saving gold, like, you know, I mean, if the industrious person is saving it, then the rest of the world doesn't have it, right? Because it's being sent to that person who is saving it. So if the United States was saving all this gold, the rest of the world was like, yo, we don't have enough currency to do transactions with, right? You have it all. And if you don't relinquish that gold, what's going to happen is we're going to stop purchasing it, and you are going to end up broke as hell, because you're going to end up relinquishing all that gold out there to the rest of the world, as your foreign imports are going to, you know, deprive you of the gold that you are now possession of as it starts to leave the nation, right? I mean, it's just the same thing. It's Cantillon effect. So it's like, you know, however you want to look at it. So what the United States was doing is, as this gold was coming to the United States and the concentration of gold was happening here, we started issuing out this paper currency to make up for the denying of gold out there to the world to do transactions with. So we were providing them with an ability to do transactions. The world looked at that and said, yeah, cool, right? Because there wasn't enough gold, because you guys have it, but now we have this paper, which is essentially as good as gold, right? We believe that if we turn in this many paper, we can get this much gold. And everybody is convinced of that. So hell, man, now we got all this paper to do transactions with, and they're as good as gold. Everybody was convinced of that. So everybody's like, yeah, let's do transactions. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of transactions, which means you need lots and lots and lots and lots of paper out there. And then once everybody realized there was lots and lots of paper and not enough gold to back it, they were like, yo, you printed up too much paper. And we're like, oh, we did. That sucks for everybody, doesn't it? So what we're going to have to do, because unless we have this world depression and we relinquish all the gold back out there to the world, which isn't going to work out very well for us, because, you know, we don't really produce enough to support our standard of living. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the gold, and you're not going to be able to trade any of it in for any of your dollars in, and we promise that we will pay you back in dollars whatever it is that you borrow, or we borrow, or you borrow, and there won't be any more gold. How's that sound? And everybody was like, hell no, that sounds like crap. And they were like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? Right? Because you're either going to be in depression, or you're going to have to use the dollar. Because relinquishing the gold back out there to the rest of the world, like we really should, due to the Cantillon effect and the failure of new money coming in, well, if we can't do that, we're going to be really pissed, and we're going to, like, you know, destroy the whole world and planet. So you just better just use the dollar. And if you don't, we'll still destroy you anyway. Right? So that's how it kind of went down. Like, I mean, just to shorten up the story. Alrighty, guys. This was a fun live stream. I really enjoyed kind of going off there a little bit, giving you some, like, my thoughts as I just ramble on about the BRICS nations and the gold currencies and can't eat silver. Well, no. Alrighty, guys, it was a lot of fun. We got 313 people watching with 129 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the channel too. Yeah, I would love to see that exponential growth of members, like gifting other members the channel, like membership to the channels, and like just kind of build that thing up that way. Like almost like becoming a member of the channel almost means like you have to be gifted the opportunity to do it, like kind of thing. You can always go buy the channel, you know, buy the membership yourself, but that's kind of like the vision that I have. Like I would think that would just be cool as hell to have that sort of movement happening within the within that community. So anyway, just my thoughts. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know. Links are down in the description.